Good afternoon once again. This is indeed a hot seat. I hope to get out of it positively. In the East African community, I think digitalization would do us good, because when you look at the impact,
It's on. Just go on. Yes.
when you look at the impact, just as we've been discussing, I'm looking at the likely impacts of digitalization to make our business processes and systems very effective, and we are also looking at competing both on the African and on the global context, because if we are to compare our region with other globalized regions, then going digital is the only way. However, I would think some of the factors we need to look at as we embrace digitalization, they are enabling environments we have got to first provide. Okay, because we being in the informal sector, despite the mindset that we have, but there are other maybe limitations that we would face. So if we are to really go forth with the digitalization, the digitalization, there are some enabling environments we have to first provide. But otherwise, I hope and believe that we can achieve a lot as the East African community.
Can you link this to globalization? We are talking of a global village, a global economy. Where do we fall? Are we big players? Are we just dots? Or are we non-existent? How do we ensure that the ESC is a big player in the digital market as far as globalization is concerned?
Okay. We cannot be a dot. We have a lot to actually offer in that market. And now, as an ESC, I think we have to put forward all the potentials, the opportunities that we have in the region, because these opportunities will actually attract the global attention. But for us to compete globally, we have to look, if we are to look at Germany, what would they be interested in East Africa? Okay? If we identify those potentials, then us competing globally does not take even a minute, because we have the potential.
Why then have we not taken the advantage of that?
Wow. As I mentioned, one, there is mindset, where like the numbers that they shared here, if you look, the community now thinks globalization is for the young people. Now the young people, they reach an extent where maybe financially they have their own limitations in implementing this globalization, okay, and also I think we have governments that try to benefit from the kind of setting we are still in, because if just the way we looked at some policies that do frustrate, some of these innovations. I will take an example of Uganda. I don't know about Kenya. When you talk of globalization, unless a government official identifies, for example, an app, okay, and he clearly knows how he's going to benefit, that's when he will allow the state to adopt it. But if you bring, for example, an app that is so beneficial, but these people are not going to directly benefit, they will frustrate.
I'm in Berlin, Germany.
Yes.
Or in Munich. Or I'm in Toronto, Canada, and I want to see what your traders at Casita are doing. Is that an opportunity or a threat?
It's an opportunity.
And how do we harness that to ensure that ESC is competitive? Because if you look at the global competitive index, we are not doing well as a region.
True, we are not. One, we do not want to benchmark. Yes, you're in Berlin, but I need to first benchmark and understand. If you're in Berlin, what are you looking at? What are these measures that can enable me to help you access my product? Or even me myself, how can I be able to understand that doctor in Berlin is actually interested in what I am trading here?
I don't know. I want to know.
This is indeed a hot seat. Wow.
You tell us, someone who is in Munich or Berlin right now and they want to know what is happening in Kampala with your members, the traders, will digitalization help them? If yes, then what are we going to, on Monday when you get to your office in Kampala, what do you tell your colleagues?
In fact, like today, when, as I told you, when I had a meeting with URA, someone in Berlin has already known. Because one, my meeting, the developments, they were being broadcast live on most of communication channels and social media networks. Okay? And I usually do permit, we are usually permitted to even make comments, live comments. And so they've already known.
But we want money for our people. Yes. That's the essence of digitalization. How do you ensure that you are on social media, you are on digital platform, how do you ensure that the money comes to Kampala, to your members in Kasita?
Okay. With the digital era, we've had a lot of promotions and branding online. And money is not going to come if they have not appreciated the information. So we have to make sure whatever opportunity we get, we portray the right information. Then we also have to make sure we use the right brand that is so attractive and competitive. And then in most cases, it's not about what you put on for example, on the website. But have you made a needs assessment? If someone is in Berlin, and maybe I need to attract the viewership or even the attention of someone in Berlin, if I clearly understand what is required in Berlin and I can be able to provide, I think it is the same thing I should put on internet, for example.
So your audience, your market really matters. That's
Yes.
the point.
Yes.
Now we go to our next member in the hot seat.
Do I have to use the microphone? I think I'm loud enough.
We need to capture your sound on that camera. That's why you have to use it. Now, what are the opportunities and the threats as far as digitalization is concerned in this region, EAC?
Sure. So
For
just
the
to-
informal
Yes.
sector,
Yes.
for the informal sector, that's why I said I'm uncomfortable with using that word, because there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of innovation, as Dr. Yanjui said, as I presented in the morning. You cannot call someone who is innovating an informal person. Yes. So what opportunities do exist in digitalization? Are there any threats? And I want you to speak for your age group.
Yes, for sure. So just to reintroduce myself, my name is Akinyi. I work with a company called Link, and we're a gig platform that connects households to businesses. So in terms of opportunities, it's number one, leveraging technology, because at the end of the day, technology is the tool. It's not the solution. Yeah, so that's the first thing, being able to connect these workers and bring them to our platform. The second thing is actually building the entrepreneurial infrastructure that these workers are lacking. And so even if they do have the skills, how do I compete on a digital platform? How do I even access the platform? Yeah, so there are certain barriers that exist to these workers by coming to this platform. Number one, let's take your average beautician, for instance, that may do work in a salon or at homes or at Kenyatta Market. You telling them to go to a digital platform, they can't, because the salon owner owns all the materials and tools. Yeah, so how can I join this platform and I don't even have capital to start? Yeah, some of these barriers include capital to enter these markets, but also an understanding of how the market exists in and of itself. This comes by ways of pricing, this comes by ways of marketing, this comes by ways of international access of other international markets. And so really trying to access these gig platforms from that context of not just the actual digital push, but all these other structures that need to exist for these workers to succeed. So the opportunities are there. It's just creating that enabling environment, which a lot of people have talked about, in order for this to be possible. A lot of the challenges we've experienced as Link in terms of engaging informal sector workers is knowing that at this point, when we started, it was a purely tech-based company. Yeah, so think of your Uber, minus capitalism, Uber for services. Yeah, and so initially it was, let's build the technology, let's make these connections possible. Once the connections happen, go ye prosper forth. and then very quickly realizing that in the informal sector, you need much more structure. And so even when we talk about not formalizing the informal sector, all these things we're talking about, be it technology, be it entrepreneur training, all of this is formalization, just different types of formalization. Yeah, and so one of the things for us that we struggled with was that we were bringing these workers to our platform. We had a very big pool, but we weren't able to utilize them. Yeah, and so you're talking about a mass, thousands of workers on your platform, but only a couple of them actually engaging actively on the platform. And the reason for that is that we saw that a lot of our workers initially when we started, the ones that could succeed were the ones that, number one, had a digital profile. So you can imagine if you're ordering your plumber or your repairman online, already your expectations are much higher, yeah, because there's somebody who's accountable to calling and saying, Akinyi, the plumber that you sent me was crap, send me another one. Yeah, so already stakes are higher when you come onto a digital platform, there's much more scrutiny. But if I, as a plumber, don't have an understanding of pricing, when I get a scope from Link that says, hey, there's this person who wants their tap fixed or their toilet fixed in Lavington, they have this type of toilet, you know, send me a quote for labor, materials, and everything that you need. If I don't have the understanding of pricing, if I don't have the understanding of how much I'm going to use for transport, if I need secondary workers to come with me, I am always going to lose out on those jobs. So especially when we're talking about gig platforms where these workers have to bid for work, if you don't have that
Capacity?
know-how, not only capacity, just understanding of the market. Yeah, so you know where you get your tools from your mom and pop shop, but when you're talking about accessing new markets, and we're talking about people who come from various socioeconomic demographics, yeah, and so I can't expect that this worker knows that in Karen, these are the tools that you'd get, or this is how to access this market, this is how to price yourself, and because your other 5 clients before me didn't pay you, that doesn't mean you should overquote in hopes for winning that gig work. Yeah, so with us, a lot of the struggle that we faced was that infrastructure was lacking, and we really needed to support our workers to be able to even get a foot into the door in the market.
And they were saying that you have individuals who don't know how to use the platform that you provided for them. So what should we do?
So the
Or what did you do from
the
there?
issue here is not the platform in and of itself.
No, it's the individuals.
Again, so it's not even the individuals. The individuals are lacking the capacity. The environment is not enabling. Yeah, so we've already talked about these skill sets being there, the willingness to be there, the hungriness is there. It's the enabling platform, and even as Link, one of the things that we've tried to do is build the entire ecosystem. Really understand supply and demand, but understand the structures that are lacking for these workers to even get onto this platform. Because before getting onto that platform, there are all these other things that exist. So even when we're talking about the youngest workers on our platform, the ones that we readily get from our local TVETs, a lot of the issues that we were facing came back to fundamental training, not even training on the technical end, but training on the client management end, on the financial management end, on the marketing end. And so even your most brilliant TVET graduate, they were still lacking that getting into our platform. And for us, that was one of the reasons we took a step back and said, hey, beyond tech, we want to be involved in service delivery. We want to be involved in in getting suppliers onto our platform. We want to be involved in giving opportunities to our workers to access tools and loans to actually enter the platform. So for us, the biggest barrier was, number one, finding out those things that the workers were needing, but also taking a step back and saying, hey, we actually need to transform the way we're thinking about engaging these workers on a digital platform.
Was it a threat, or is it a threat?
It's an opportunity. It's definitely an opportunity.
Any other threat you think?
In terms of threats,
Maybe exploitation?
Again, so both. So in terms of threats, especially on a gig platform, and this is not unique to Link, this is unique to all gig platforms, there's always the potential of cutout. So you can imagine if, and by cutout I mean disintermediation. So again, because you're on a digital platform, you need to make sure that the linkages that you're making between service providers and service buyers is seamless enough that that transaction always happens on your platform. If it's frustrating for a customer to come to Link to order the service or to rebook the service or make a payment, it's going to be easier for them to call Kamau and tell Kamau, just come to my house. Yeah, and so when you're talking about a gig platform and digitizing a lot of these services, so with Link, all our workers go to the household or the business. So the work is still being done by informal sector worker. We're just enabling the connection through our platform. And so if our platform is not seamless enough, there's nothing that's preventing that customer, whether that customer is a household or a client, from just calling up the worker directly. So that's a direct threat, not only to gig platforms, but to digitization in and of itself. And even when we talk about upskilling and workers, and a lot of the equipment and AI and all these things that are coming out that are threatening the future of work. When we talk about the informal sector, these skills are still going to be needed. If we talk about furniture making, which is very big in this country, these are still skills that cannot be automated. Yeah? And so the exciting thing about the informal sector is knowing that those skills will not be automated anytime soon, and those markets will still exist. So it's how to leverage that, make sure that the digital tools you're building for that platform work, but disintermediation is next to none.
Maybe lastly, before you go to Fred, the issue of quality services. Is it an issue?
Yes. So issue of quality is definitely an issue I think all gig platforms face, which is one of the reasons why us as Link, we are getting much more involved, not only in service delivery, but in actual training. Yeah, and so when we look at the average worker coming to our platform, they go through a series of trainings, and there's checks and balances that happen inside and outside the platform. So even if we've engaged them, there's constant touch points between us, our customer management team, but also our training team to make sure that, you know, the service they're getting from a Link plumber, number one, we want to curate an experience for all our customers to have the same experience. So a Kingi doesn't go and Nicole doesn't go and they get two different experiences from one platform. So it's consolidating that customer experience into one consolidated type of training, but also providing customers, providing informal sector workers with the same tools and materials that we know that they need to be able to do a job. Yeah, so number one, upskilling them in terms of the actual training, but number two, giving them the right tools and materials to make sure that that quality is delivered. And in cases where it's not, making sure that we can actively take that feedback and quickly turn around that service.
We'll come back to you later. Now, Fred, the so-called informal sector, is it homogeneous or is it heterogeneous?
Simplify. My name is Frederick Dawa from Kamkunji Juakala Association. I'm also National Organizing Secretary of MSEL Summit. I think the whole scenario, when we talk about the informal sector in this country, the role that it plays in the presence or in the view of each and every person speaks volume. And in our own understanding, if you look at what the strategies that we have been given here during presentation and what we see outside there, I think you can say that what we stand for in this sector, this is the only sector that the nation must bank on. Because without banking on this, then the nation is not going to get whatever it wants. In terms of GDP, you find that over 68% of current statistics says that the job opportunity is coming from the informal sector. So I think what we need to do in the first place, we as a nation or as a country or as the informal sector, if you have the position or capacity, we need to put a lot of emphasis on the kind of mechanism or strategies that should be followed so that when we go to this market, we can capitalize on it, we venture into it with the machineries and the capacity so that we can control the sector itself. What is lacking is this. People fail to do research. For example, if you go to other nations, those who are we call the superpowers.
Let's relate to the EAC region. The informal sector in Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi.
That's why I'm
Are
going
they
to.
the same?
Yes. That Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, and Burundi. I've not gone to those areas. But I
you
can
have
talk
heard.
about Kenya. I've heard.
Yes.
But what I get from other statistics shows that Kenya is a bit higher than other regions. But generally, we are selling the same boat. What I'm saying is this. Nowadays, even as we are talking today, what China is going to sell to Kenyan market in 2070 has already been done. Which means they are studying what they are going to sell to us in those years. What can we do as a nation? What can we do as informal sector people? So that we can get rid of our market, participate in it positively, and also win our own market back to us. I'm not saying that we are the people to use the market by ourselves. But a bigger percentage of what is being sold in this market should come from us.
Yes,
Then,
what should make it a niche? How should the informal sector carve a niche for itself in this region so that we don't rely on products that are made from outside?
from outside.
How should it make it
One,
a niche?
one, technologically, people must be upgraded. That is very key. Technologically, we must be upgraded. In terms of machinery, what kind of machineries are we using at our workplaces? And what about the quality control of the product that we make? Those are some of the issues that we need to look into through the research. Then we must understand what kind of quality the product from outside is having against what we are making. Because it is a competition. I think in the morning when I say that we must try to eliminate unnecessary competition, you pose a question yourself.
Yes.
Is a competition, how did you put it?
Is competition a ben or a boon? Competition, does it make us better or it makes us worse?
Competition makes us better, but when we are at par with others. Let me give a scenario. Here in Kenya, we have Gor Mahia Football Club, the giant. Do you want to expect me to put Gor Mahia to compete with Arsenal at the same tournament? No. Why? In terms of capacity, in terms of money given to players, one player who is playing at Arsenal, the kind of money he's getting per week can run Gor Mahia for the full season. The money that man gets per week. So putting these two at par to play in a tournament is not necessary because the other one will not make it. So I'm saying this.
What should we do?
When I was talking about the elimination of unnecessary competition, it has been happening in these giant nations. While they were starting from the scratch, in 1790, when the CS for Finance, Mr. Alexander Hamilton of America, enacted a series of legislation to protect the manufacturing industry, which was growing. The same to UK. They did it to wool industry during those days for 100 years. Why not Kenya or East African community? I'm not saying that we are running away from competition, but we must be in a position to grow ourselves to a certain level. Is when we can now compete. In terms of machineries, even in your house alone, if I go now, I will not find anything from Juakali in your house, which means you like things from outside. They look so nice. They look so nice, presentable. While ours, we make them using hands, total manual. So can I compete with such a person before you as a buyer? Automatically, we're going to leave my product.
So is that the reason why you are saying most of our entrepreneurs are still stuck in that informal economy?
Exactly. They need to be upgraded technologically in every field. These people must be upgraded so that they can feel that the environment favors what they are doing. When I talked about objective condition of workplace or the market, what are the forces operating within the space? And these forces, if we understand them, then we can now have a opportunity to tackle and give an answer.
Yes, can we have a member of the audience reacting to the issue that has been raised by our colleague Fred here? Just project your voice, please.
Yeah. I think one element that I would add to what Frederick is saying is the question of pricing. Because those commodities that are overflooding our markets here, they are cheap. Today, if the ones that are coming from China, for example, are cheap compared to what we are producing. Something that we should not forget. That it's not that they are more valuable or sustainable. I mean durable, but they are cheap.
Demand and supply.
Yeah.
The market economy.
They are cheap. So again,
The buyer should choose what he or she wants.
But again, true. But again, it's vice versa.
Am I going to choose it because it's from Kenya, when it's hogwash, or I choose it because it's of good standard?
That's one item. But in general, most goods that are getting...
Now respond to that question first. Should this lady in my village in Kakamega choose a product because it's from Kenya or because it's of good quality and standard?
What you call quality, what you call quality to that lady may not be quality, it's just something new. So that, some people buy these things here not because they are quality. That's what we are trying to explain. Some of them is that it's a new product, I'll be seen as new. But the product compared to what we produce here, you find that it is of low quality and standards. That's what I'm trying to bring out. But our people, because of lack of education and understanding, think this thing looks nice. And yet, durability here is something that is, cannot survive. What I wanted to say is this, the point I wanted to add there. Pricing is very important too. Our people are not exposed, so that you see a product like this, you think it is good.
No, we have digital. We have gone digital, we are exposed.
The other day you take it to a home.
We have gone digital, we have exposed. So don't say you are not exposed.
Not so
People
much.
have gone digital, they are exposed.
But you took me to Kakamega.
Yes.
That's why I'm reminding you about home there. When you take me to Kakamega, then I want you to have that mind. What I want to say is this, something very important about quality. She was talking about something very important. The other day, we sent some product outside. And the linkage, another lady here, for example, who told me that the products that we were selling to them, said that they must remain the same. Every time we want it, it must be the same. The standard to be, so holding the standard completely is another problem that I realized with the linkages. Then the challenge of that thing can be returned. When it is returned, the seller feels the cost. And I saw that is also a big challenge.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's have a brother from Uganda, then you can come to Fred, to Gaston.
Thank you very much. I want to talk about quality. The products that the informal sector makes, or the individuals in the informal sector make, the products are not of poor quality. Depending on their capacity. It's just like Coca-Cola. If you take Coca-Cola in Uganda, it's not the same taste the Coca-Cola of South Africa. Because in South Africa, they don't want it sweet. But Ugandans want sweet things. What am I trying to drive to? We need to do a needs assessment, just like Abel said. A needs assessment. If you want to take your goods to Germany, first do a needs assessment and see what those people need. Then, what's hindering the informal sector is money. What can we do as an informal sector? We need to put our money into a pool. You see, in the informal sector, it's even hard to borrow money. They will ask you for documents you don't have. But if we put our money in one pool, and Madame Anna wants to make a particular item, she can easily come to this pool and take some money. Then she makes items that meet the standards of Germany.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Now we want to go to Gaston from the Republic of Tanzania. Now from this moment, if you need to make any intervention or any comment, please just make your way and there's a seat there. So when I see you sitting there, I know that you want to make a contribution. You want to disagree with one of what has been said here. So we want to go to our brother from Tanzania. What needs to be done to ensure that the informal economy or the informal sector in Kenya is able to adapt digitalization and embrace it well and make the region competitive, make our countries competitive?
Well, yes. Yeah, well, yeah, before I go to what the informal sector in Kenya and Tanzania maybe could be competitive, first of all, I will have to ask you, because I wear the shoes here. Can you predict this kind of shoes? This is made by my member, informal sector. Look at the quality. This quality of shoes and yours. Is there any different?
No, they are the same.
They're the same.
Yeah.
But this is what you yourself have to sit with. You buy it in German, isn't it? Yeah, you have said that. Yes, this is, I was in German, Berlin. I buy these shoes. I bought these shoes when I was in German. But these shoes.
Yeah, they are the same.
Yes. Is made by my people, the informal sector people. So it means that there is a potentiality of the informal sector in terms of productivity and quality. But our policy is favoring them? Is there any commitment from the government? Is there any commitment from the private sector? So there is a prayers to the government, both to the local government, to the central government, and also to the private sector. So what I can see, how can we ourselves look on the digitalization, especially to market our product and economy, our product to the informal sector? There is a question of policies of our countries, our laws of our countries regarding of this. Tanzania will have cyber crime law. There is a lot of challenges of using of this digital communication, etc. So what we can do, what myself I'm suggesting that there is a need to harmonize, like what we have now, a border post. So it means that when you go to the Namanga, so all of under one roof, Tanzania,
One
Kenya,
border stop.
one border stop, and then when you go to Horohoro, the same. So that we need also to look also. We need to have the same policy, laws, and guidance and regulation, so that the people of informal sector in the country, we want to improve the informal sector, to grow, to get the market. Because in this EAC, we are more than 120. It's not the market of our goods and services. More than 120 people. That is what we will have to start with ourselves.
Now, when you talk about the government, who is the government? You are the government. I am the government. There's no force there called government. Government is the will of the people. You are the government. What are you going to do to ensure that we embrace digitalization?
It is, yeah. But, you need ourselves to come to advocacy. Okay? You need to do an advocacy. You lobby and advocacy. To lobby is to seduce. Is it okay?
Yes.
It means that kutongoza in Kiswahili. So you need kutongoza, to convince them. So we need to have a very strong lobbying and advocacy, so that our government will have to agree or will have to go on digitalization.
You want to throw in a spanner, James?
Not really. I just came to sit here to demonstrate how the hot seat works, so that if you have a question, you don't wait for him to ask. If you have a question, please come to the front. When you see a vacant seat, you just come, occupy it, you make your comments, and leave. So you don't stay for long. But so I've got a question I'll ask and then leave, so that somebody else can.
Proceed, sir.
Yeah, I've liked your example of the shoes. Yeah. How big is the shoe market in your members? In dollars, and then where do they supply the shoes?
Because he's saying that we do this,
Because
we do this,
yeah, and then there's this one.
the same, and then there's this one.
Yeah, so I asked this deliberately because there must be a reason why he bought his from Italy, and you just bought from your members. Yeah. Yet we need to look at the possibility of how you make somebody else buy, not only members buying from each other. But a possibility of somebody coming from far or somebody who stays in another country looking for this shoe. So how big you can be answering while somebody else comes to occupy the same.
How big? And then how do we make someone
you-
buy your shoe?
Yeah, you know, the major problem is the quality of quantity of production, because themselves they are using hands and you know, and also the tools. I mean, the equipment they are using, they are, yeah, they are very limited. And we at the organization, in collaboration DFID, we come with the project of 5 years project to improve themselves in terms of quality, in terms of quantity of production, so that we can get access a bigger market. Because if nowadays, every day you cannot find the shoe there. They have it in the local market. Now, for example, into school shoes, especially to the kids. People previously they buy the shoes from what? From China. Nowadays, they are not going to buy from China because even less than 6 months, all the shoes has been worn out. So what they're doing is just to come to buy from our members. So the competition is there. People are coming to buy. The market is bigger, but in terms of the quantity of production is limited.